Page 107. Dice. Nia banged on the bathroom door. "Open up, Deshawn." Just a second. The lock was broken, so I kept my foot jammed against the bottom of the door. "I'm going to tell Grandma what you're doing," Nia threatened. "Go ahead." The truth was, I was shaving my upper lip. I didn't have any hair growing there yet, but I'd heard if you shaved, it made your stash grow in faster. Nia banged again. "Come on, I gotta go." Another second. I rinsed the razor and put it back in the medicine cabinet, then wiped my face with a towel to get rid of the telltale shaving cream. When I opened the door, Nia looked around suspiciously and took a deep sniff. "What are you up to?" "Nothing," I said with a smile. Nia squinted her eyes severely, as if accepting a challenge. After grabbing the towel off the rack and burying her face in it, she looked up, puzzled at first, and then frowned. "Shaving cream?" I felt my face turn hot. My sister's disapproval turned into a triumphant smile. "You even got anything to shave, baby face?" "A little." "Well, keep your fingers crossed, and maybe you'll be shaving by the time you're 21, she said. "Now get out of here and let me do my business." I left the bathroom. The bedroom door was open. It was one of those rare, quiet moments when both babies were asleep. LaRue was sitting on the corner of the bed with a small paintbrush in his hand. Curious, I stepped closer and saw that he'd placed half a dozen little jars of paint on the floor and was carefully painting an action figure holding a sword. "What is it?" I whispered, not wanting to wake the babies sleeping on the bed. "Warhammer," he answered, and pointed at a small plastic case which lay open by his feet. Inside, a dozen painted figures of knights with shields, swords, and spears were nestled in gray foam. "You painted all of them?" I asked. LaRue nodded. "I play over at the Hobby Center." "Play?" "It's a strategy game. We have armies that fight each other." "Like gangbangers?" I thought, and headed into the living room. Grandma was watching Judge Joe Brown, and I knew better than to interrupt her. Her gray hair stuck out unevenly, and she had bags under her eyes. Lately, it seemed like she was going to work less and spending more time sitting on that old couch. It used to be that she'd dress up and go out on the weekends more too, but now she was 45, and that was old. She didn't bother to ask where I was going when I left. Down in the lobby, Terrell was sitting on an old car seat some guys had dragged inside, drinking a bottle of malt liquor. His mustache was growing in, not enough to shave yet, but what there was made him look older. He wore a chain around his neck and a black leather wristband. Offering the bottle to me, he said, "Want to play some CeeLo?" Ever since that day at King Chicken, when Marcus had slapped him around, Terrell had been changing, forcing himself to get tougher and meaner. He always had gambling and drinking money now. Not what guys called real money, like enough to buy a car or even a flat-screen TV, but enough to make life a little more interesting than before. "Who are you shooting with?" I asked. "Bubbles and some friend of his." The words were hardly out of his mouth when Bubbles and a stocky, ominous-looking guy came into the lobby. The stranger was wearing a black knit cap, a heavy green and blue plaid shirt, and an earring. "This is my cousin Jules," said Bubbles proudly, as if he was glad to be related to someone who looked so tough. Unlike the rest of us, Bubbles' voice hadn't started to drop yet. He was like a big, chubby, overgrown baby. Page 110. "Where are you from?" Terrell asked in his hard voice, not getting up or offering to shake hands. "Here now," Jules answered, just as hard, and cracked his knuckles. "Just moved in." "Like it?" Terrell asked, joking. But Jules didn't get the joke. "You serious? It's worse than ghetto." He looked around impatiently, as if he wasn't interested in chit-chat. It was all part of the pose. "So where do you play?" "In the back," said Terrell, slowly hoisting himself to his feet, trying to look as menacing as he could. We went down a hall and through a back door. An outside security light provided illumination. A couple of kids were spraying tags on the wall, but now that Terrell was a disciple, all he had to say was "get lost," and they scattered. Terrell, Bubbles, and Jules knelt down and started to roll. Terrell and Jules were quiet and tense. working hard to oppose each other, while Bubbles jabbered nervously in that high voice. Having no guap to gamble, I stared out into the dark and smoked some bud. The more I smoked and drank, the less sharp and jagged was the pain of missing Tanisha. I closed my eyes and let my head tilt back. Every sound around me seemed amplified. The clickety-clack of the green and red dice, the hopeful mutterings of the guys, followed by disappointed grunts or triumphant chortles, the traffic out on Abernathy, the angry couple yelling from the window somewhere above, it all came together in the music of the projects. Back in the day when Terrell and I were shorties, there'd been different music in our ears. Playing box ball, cops and robbers, tag and hide and seek. The music was a chorus of laughter and shouting. There were gangs and shootings back then too, but they were just brief interruptions in the fun and didn't mean anything. Crash. Smashing glass snapped me back. Jules had tossed a bottle into the dark. I'm sick of playing for $1 or $2, he grumbled in a voice that sounded syrupy from drink and weed. Who wants to make it 5 and 10? Terrell's eyes were glazed and his movements were slow, but there was no way he was backing down. Sure, 5 and 10. I don't know, Bubbles said nervously. I ain't got that much. Then just watch, Jules grumbled. Bubbles backed away while Jules and Terrell rolled. Soon there was close to $80 lying on the ground, and Jules was shaking the dice. He had to roll a 6. The dice skipped across the asphalt and ricocheted off the brick wall. I could have sworn he rolled a 3, but an instant later his hand swept down, scattering the dice. I won, he said, scooping up the bills. You rolled a 3, said Terrell. A 6, Jules insisted, shoving the money into his pocket. He got to his feet and stumbled backward, waving his arms to keep his balance. A 3, Terrell rose unsteadily. Then you knocked the dice away. They glared at each other. I got up, feeling woozy but alert to the growing sense of danger. The music of the night faded away. Where are you going anyway? Terrell asked. Gotta fade. The hell you do, Terrell snarled. Hey, Bubbles started to say, but Jules cut him short with shut up. Then Jules glared at Terrell and cracked his knuckles. Who's going to stop me? Give me that money, Terrell said. Jules turned to Bubbles. You tell him. It was a 6, right? Bubbles' eyes darted frantically between his cousin and his friend. He lowered his gaze. I didn't see. Did you see? Terrell asked me. I nodded. Looked like a 3. Well, you're wrong. It was a 6, Jules said, puffing out his chest, and I got a bounce. He turned to leave. You ain't going nowhere, Terrell threatened. Suddenly he started to wheeze and reached into his starter jacket for the inhaler. Jules watched him inhale his medicine, then grinned. Some tough guy. Terrell slid his hand inside the starter jacket again, but this time it didn't come out. Give back the money or else. I felt a chill. Jules stared at the pocket where Terrell's hand disappeared into his jacket. His lips parted into a grin. Or what? You gonna shoot me with your inhaler?